Hey, welcome to another edition of Speed Chronicles. We do it every Wednesday here on the RevTV YouTube channel at Todd Lewis Sports. At RevTV are the social channels where you'll find us on X and on Instagram. We do it every week, talk about some of the stories that are happening in and around motorsports, not so much results. And in fact, I don't think we'll really talk about results at all today, because there's so much going on. This is really becoming the off season for a number of series. IndyCar has finished up. NASCAR Canada Series has finished up. IMSA's got their one big event yet, that Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta coming up in a couple of weeks. But we're just really starting to get to the end of the season. NASCAR's got a couple of weeks to go. And of course, Formula One has a little time to go. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those series, NASCAR and NASCAR's Cup Series and Formula One, because there's some big stories there. IndyCar as well I want to get into because of the whole Michael Andretti thing. There's been stories happening there. And of course, Formula One with Daniel Ricciardo finally being out of the car. My gosh. But the one that's just starting to evolve. Remember a couple months ago, I think I mentioned on this program that there would be a few more stories about NASCAR charters. Well, a lot of the teams signed the charter earlier in September, except for a couple, and they filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. That's big. That's enormous. That's very big. This is a very long play. It's a very big deal, but it has to do with the way NASCAR conducts business and a couple of the teams not liking it. So we're going to see what happens with this. Again, nothing's going to be resolved very quickly. This is going to be a very long play, but it's not over in terms of what some of the teams want in terms of charters and what NASCAR is willing to give. This is a really big deal in terms of the future of the business. We'll see how it all plays out. The other one, of course, having to do with business has to do with IndyCar and the story that came out about Michael Andretti, who is stepping away from the ownership aspect of Andretti Global. He's not getting out of the motorsports business completely. He's still going to have a role. He's been super involved in racing for almost his entire life, whether it's as a racer, whether it's as a team owner in IndyCar and a variety of other series as well. Of course, the much discussed trying to get into Formula One for the last couple of years. But Michael's just turning 62. His dad, Mario, of course, is well into his 80s. He has Marco, of course, his son, but he also has young kids. He has twin 10-year-olds, I believe, from another marriage. So your priorities in life change at different points in life. And you can see it, how at 62, that he was so driven and so focused as a racer that it consumed him. He got out of racing IndyCar competitively, probably a little earlier than many expected. But he stepped away. He stepped into a very successful ownership group and has run his IndyCar team, of course, as well as teams in other series for an awfully long time. So I can see it. Are there other issues behind it? We'll wait and see how that comes out and what develops and what the real story is. But I can understand wanting to take a step back in your 60s at that point in his life with kids, grandkids now that you have to look at and focus on, and having it consume every hour of your day-to-day life. Maybe you want to go at a slightly slower pace. We'll see. I'd be surprised if this limits the company interest in becoming a part of Formula One. Of course, they have that arrangement with Cadillac. I think they're still trying to navigate the waters. There's legal parts of it that they were looking at as well. So I don't think that Andretti Global has any less of a desire to be part of the Formula One scene, even if Michael is not in as big an ownership area as he was previously. I'm curious to see what happens with it, to see what plays out. There's a lot of stuff going on in IndyCar now with the season's over. I mean, they had this much discussed 100 days to Indy and the lead up to the Indianapolis 500. I think they really need to get away from that and focus on a 12-month behind the scenes show, or maybe just 100 days after the season has ends. Because I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on with driver changes and announcements that are coming into play. Alexander Rossi is going to run at Ed Carpenter Racing. Who didn't see that coming? I mean, it's just absolutely the perfect marriage. Yes, he gets to stay in the Chevrolet family, but uh, Alexander Rossi and Ed Carpenter are friends. They're close. They fly to races together sometimes, so you can see how that would really come about as a good soft landing spot for Alex Rossi now that he's out of McLaren. So there's a lot going on in terms of IndyCar. There's apparently going to be an announcement. We'll see when about a new race in Texas. No, they're not going back to the Speedway. Apparently, they're going to run a street race, and it's going to be around the Dallas Cowboys football stadium. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Street race around football stadium. It's been done before, years ago. Kind of interesting. Good to be back in Texas and in that big market. That's nice. I guess that's good. But we're getting all these stories about the drivers and Michael Andretti stepping away from ownership. But you know what the series needs? Needs a new chassis. Needs to sort out their engine program and their marketing and promotion program for the series. These are far bigger priorities that we're not hearing an awful lot about, that we should hopefully be hearing an awful lot about in the days, weeks, and months to come before St. Petersburg, which will be here before you know it on the first week of March in 2025 to kick off the new season. Let's hear about the new television agreement with Fox and who's going to be the presenters of that broadcast. These are things I want to start hearing about as well. Okay, I mentioned it on off the top in terms of Formula One, and we'll talk about it because they're on a bit of a break between races now. They'll get back into it when Formula One resumes at COTA, at Circuit of the Americas, in a couple of weeks, which I'm looking forward to. Tremendous crowds. It's a fantastic circuit as well. It is absolutely 100%. It is a Formula One racing track. It's a beautiful circuit, and it's fun to watch these cars. But we'll talk about this topic, and hopefully this is the last time we're going to have to talk about this topic because it's Daniel Ricciardo. It's official. He's no longer driving in F1. He's been replaced. He's out of the seat. We've talked about it before. We've talked about it too much because that's what Daniel Ricciardo does. He draws attention. He's a magnet. He's a smiling, popular racer who has had some success in Formula One. Had years ago, many years ago now, when he was driving with what was becoming a very good team at Red Bull. But no, he thought that pastures were greener somewhere else. So he left. Right at the height of COVID and the behind the scenes Drive to Survive series on Netflix, he became incredibly popular and was one of the big personalities as part of the series. It gained him an awful lot of notoriety because he was fun, because he was smiled, because he did goofy things. He attracted a lot of fans and a following. Wasn't because of his incredible success. He had successes. He had race wins. He was a lot more and still is a lot more likable than Max Verstappen. Imagine if Daniel Ricciardo had stayed at Red Bull and those two had fought for race wins and for championships, I suspect. Things could have and perhaps would have been an awful lot different, but he didn't. He left. And then maybe I got to leave this situation I'm in, then go to McLaren. And remember, he got kicked from McLaren a year early because he couldn't produce. So whose bright idea was it to think that, oh, we'll bring him back to Red Bull and he'll be great and everything will be fantastic and fine and we'll have success? No, you won't, because the car's not up to it and Daniel Ricciardo's not up to it. Are we done now? Pretty close, I hope. Because Daniel Ricciardo's no longer in Formula One. He's not coming back anytime soon. Let's just hope we can move on. As I said, this is becoming more and more a young man's sport. Formula One, more young drivers are coming in, talented, skilled young drivers. I'm okay with it. Father Time is undefeated in whichever sport or discipline you want to talk about. And it happens. Sometimes it happens really fast to some elite level athletes, whatever the sport it is you're talking about. And it happens in motorsports as well. You don't have the same skills, you don't have the same reaction time, and your performance suffers. Maybe not a lot right away, but your skills will decline as you get older, and it's an unfortunate fact that everyone has to face. Daniel Ricciardo's skills have declined. Can he still pop in a fast lap the way he did at the last race? Yeah. Can he do it consistently and perform at a high level throughout an entire race? No. He needs to be replaced. So we'll see. As mentioned, IMSA is still got their big event left. Let's mention as well that Trans Am is back in action coming up at VIR. And I mention it because young sensation, 18-year-old Connor Zilic is going to run the Trans Am event at VIR coming up. And I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see him and watch his progress as he moves through his racing career, going full-time Xfinity racing next weekend. Still some local track activity going on as well in the Southern Ontario area. There's Frostfest coming up, and there's Autumn Colors, of course, coming up on the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. So there's that to look forward to as well. But we're getting near the end of the season. And looking forward to some 2025 plans that are going to be solidified as well. IMSA is starting to announce their confirmations of teams coming for 2025 as well. Even before this year is done, they were super early in announcing their 25 schedule at Sebring this year. So I think it's nice that they're starting to confirm teams early as well. This is a series that understands, yes, market, promote, and that's helps drawing fans in terms of viewership and in terms of attendance as well. So we appreciate you checking out this week's edition of Speed Chronicles at Todd Lewis Sports at revtv. If you've got thoughts on X and on Instagram, you can shoot us a message, and we'll do it again next Wednesday. Have a great week of racing.